Hey everybody, it's Karen from Art for Acrylics. Welcome to my Fluid Art channel here at Studio 205. No intro today. Hopping right into this so I can explain myself. What you're watching here, you may have seen it on Nikki D's channel. And if you don't follow or subscribe to Nikki D Art, you really should. She's a phenomenal artist in her own right, and I adore her. We did the December Piggy Switcheroo, where a bunch of artists got together, created a painting, and then we swapped videos with each other, and Nikki D had mine. So the original version of this is on her channel. But when I submitted my video, I had run out of time to finish my embellishments and had to get a video to her in order to make it in time for the collaboration. And I knew I wasn't happy with it. So if you did see this video, you might want to, either watch it again for my explanations or hop to the end for the modifications that I make to it. So that collaboration was hella fun. I'm doing the switch and trying to have you guys guess who had whom. I did a couple things differently, like I used a different table. I had reversed my video so it looked like I was right-handed instead of left-handed. I wore black gloves instead of my usual blue. And then I realized I forgot to cover up my hair dryer, and a lot of people, as soon as they saw me waving around a purple hair dryer, they knew it was me. So this is something else I did that I normally don't do, which is spread around the white to help everything slide around better. I usually don't bother. I let the centrifugal force do that for me. But it actually helped because I knew I was going to embellish this piece, and I knew I wanted some sort of sunrise, sunset with a horizon line. And in order to do that, I knew I was going to be tilting. So that's what is going on here, back and forth. And I got to say, who knew that 3 fruit piggies, as I like to call them, would make such an awesome sunrise or sunset? So other than the Utrecht Sapphire Blue, the rest were all piggies. So it was the fruit piggies, like watermelon, golden peach, and mango. And then with the unicorn on top for the blue sky. So I'm going to give this a spin here. And there was this dot of paint at the top there that I ended up leaving on. I pretty much ignore it until the very end of this video, and you'll see what that is and why I left it on the canvas. But just spinning everything out here, trying to decide where my horizon line is going to be. And then I decided, instead of using a skewer, I was going to trick you all by using a mini lightsaber to draw it, because I am a Star Wars fan after all. But right now I'm still tilting, still mucking around with my composition. I'm very highly invested in this piece and wanted to do it justice. And I think 1 or 2 more spins and I should be good to go. Yep, just giving everything, kind of centering the design so that I have that white part kind of in the middle, even though I know I'm going to run a line through it in the middle in a minute. Very, very fun. Am I done? Are you done fooling around? Nope, 1 more spin. Getting off as much paint as possible and helping that white line that I have going on spread out even more. So it was all kind of by design. I must have had over an hour of film content that I had to then cut down to under 15 minutes in order to send it to Nikki. So it went from something like an hour and 27 minutes down to 13 minutes, which was amazing. So a lot of things were cut out, and it's mostly just me talking about the process. So I'll try to do that in this video here. So here's me with the lightsaber, deliberately drawing my horizon line. It has a little button on the end that you press on the button and it lights up. And I just thought it was fun. And I was kind of proud of myself because that's a fairly straight line, particularly when that painting's on a spinner, on a cake spinner. This canvas is a 16 by 20. And once I have my horizon line, I then let this dry for a bit before I can start doing my embellishments. So there's my line. Are you happy now? Nope. Got to play with it. Oh, I'm making it bigger. See, that lightsaber is about a 1/4 of an inch thick. So I was dragging it through to make sure I could really see that line. And are you happy now? Is it done now? I adore the colors of this, though. I thought it was super pretty. And once I have this part done, then the real fun starts. Yep, I think this is it. Taking one last look. And moving on to the embellishment part. So first thing I did was take this Posca pen, and there's actually like a clear piece of plastic keeping my line straight there. And I used that to make sure I have a starting point. And at this point, this is where I'm starting my mountains. And I had this idea in my head, and I ultimately didn't like how it looked, but I wanted my mountains to look kind of like ski slopes. So they were very swoopy and smooth in some areas, which looked good in my head, but either I didn't execute it well, or I just didn't like how it looked. I just felt like it looked more like a silhouette of a roller coaster or something. But at this point, I was still stubborn and moving on. And what I'm using there is, that's a 1/4 inch angled brush by Princeton. And I'm using that to mimic that line that I created with the Posca pen. And then I'm filling in my outline. And this is just using my Da Vinci Payne's Gray in water. And I'm just painting it all in. There was a lot more work that went into it that ended up, edited out of the video. It got painted with Payne's Gray and then the Sapphire Blue. And then while the Sapphire Blue was still wet, I had used Payne's Gray and crumpled up a piece of parchment paper. And the mountains were quite modeled. Like, they looked really, really cool. But, it's such a dark silhouette, you really didn't see it on camera, which was kind of a shame because that part was kind of cool. So just filling in my mountains. And then once I had them all filled in, I went ahead and outlined them, I believe. Is that coming up? Where I outlined them with a Posca pen. And I wish I hadn't done that. Oh, I'm just fiddling with some gaps with my brush right now. Because I ended up not liking the outline either. Lessons learned. I learned a lot with this painting and another sample one I had done. And when we get to the modification of these mountains, I'll talk about it. Particularly the difference between the house paint based acrylics and the acrylics with just paint and water. It was just a night and day difference. And in a good way too, because I was able to remove things I didn't like without harming the art underneath. But for now, this is me just dorking around with the mountains, getting just the right shade. I didn't want black. I felt black was too stark. I cut out, like I said, the modeling portion, but it was really nice because it looked natural, like how you would see it in nature. Um, but it ends up getting covered up. So there I am outlining this with a dark blue Posca pen just to really make it pop against that backdrop of the sunset. And that part's okay. And then the next part was to create the reflection. And I love the color. This is basically using that Utrecht fluid acrylic in sapphire blue and water. Like, it is so watered down. It's essentially watercolor. And I love the color. I thought it was a perfect choice. But what I didn't like is the hard line I left behind. Like, if I had left it just like this, I should have stopped right there while I was ahead, but I didn't. I was, having too much fun painting. The hard lines, like, you don't really see that in a reflection. A reflection is usually wavy lines or distorted or kind of modeled. And this is me again outlining my reflection, which once I was done, I hated. It was like, I got to get a video to Nikki before the collaboration in 2 days, and because she needed time to edit and do her voiceover and everything, and off it went. I do want to talk about this brush, this mop brush right here. It is such a fantastic tool to have. I save up my pennies, and whenever my fine art supply stores called Plaza Art here in my area has their brushes on sale, I try to go and buy a couple of like really good brushes because the hairs don't fall out. You can wash them and they keep their shape, etc., etc. So these brushes that I'm using are mostly, the brand is Princeton, and I buy strictly for acrylic paints, and they're just amazing and really make a difference. Having the right tool in anything in life just makes your life easy. So this is just me playing around, and that's what the final version that I sent to Nikki looked like. Now, the sky and the bottom portion of the painting, there's no denying that it can make almost anything else look good. But seriously, I still see a roller coaster here. And I'm like, I hate it. But it was too late, so off it went to her, and it was posted for the collab, and the collaboration was hella fun, trying to guess who created what painting. That was a blast. But as soon as I had a minute, I ran to the studio and brought this home and decided, yeah, I got to change it up. So that's what we're going to do next. So here I am at home, and I'm going to show you here how I remove that reflection, particularly those hard lines. And this was outlined. I have a Posca pen that happens to be the same shade as sapphire blue. And this was outlined. And if you're really careful, the difference between the house paint-based acrylics and regular acrylics just mixed with a little bit of water, if you're really careful, you can use, like I am, a Q-tip with, I think that was 91% isopropyl alcohol, and you lay down the alcohol and you just wait like 10 seconds, and you're able to just lift off either your wash, or actually this is a glaze, and the Posca pen with no ill effect to the painting underneath, which, saved my butt and really, really made a difference to how this looks at the end. So this is me like cleaning up and removing the Posca pen, and then I go back and remove some of the paint as well. This was a lifesaver. This took a while. This was a good 40 minutes or so, down to a couple of minutes. This is sped up, I think, like 6 times because it was a slow process. You know, I was being super careful. Um, and speaking of glaze and washes, in case you don't know, so if you take your paint and it's super thinned or super watered down like a watercolor, you put it on a plain canvas and it's watered down, well, that's basically a wash. But if you're taking that same paint and putting on top of a color or another painting, then it's considered a glaze. So technically, this is I'm removing the glaze here of the reflection, and very, very gentle, but it works great. And I was able to take off everything I wanted to take off, and you can see how it's starting to disappear uh, as I go along. And then I was talking about how I like being able to see the color underneath. Okay, now we're coming up to where I am going to fix my roller coaster. And at first I had this idea of like, well, you can kind of see the modeling in the mountains that I was talking about with the various shades of the Payne's Gray and the Sapphire Blue that I really liked. And what I'm using now is basically my Da Vinci Payne's Gray mixed with a tiny bit of white, just so it's not too dark. And I had this idea of, oh, well, maybe I'll put mountains behind the roller coaster mountains, and that might look interesting. So that's what I start to do here. And I decided if I didn't like it, then I could just paint the whole thing anyway. And this way I would have a chance to, figure out what my composition for the mountains would look like. Like that part on the left there with a little bit of pink, I deliberately left that. I like that pop of color there. My husband never liked that flat top mountain. He's like, please fix that. So I'm like, okay. And it's fun to show him stuff like this because he just focuses on what he likes and doesn't like, and he doesn't care really about like the technique or how I got there. So he doesn't have that kind of eye. He just knows what looks good. So that's useful to me. And it was fun being able to sit at home. There's my cat on the floor, how she was for a second. And just sit at the dining room table and do this. Ultimately, I decided, good timing, that I didn't like the double mountain background and decided I'm just painting this all in. See, I'm showing you like, yeah, I really don't like it. Let's paint it in. At one point, I had made the mountains snow-capped as well, but that got snipped out of the video because I ultimately didn't keep them. And then once I have this all painted, I feel like that Payne's Gray, even though it's watered down with a little bit of white, see how I added some white here and how it's more like a lighter shade of blue-gray. I decided that was my preference. So what I ended up doing is just like painting the whole thing dark, just so I could look at my skyline with the mountains and make sure I was happy with it. And then once I was, I believe I taped this up to keep it neat too. And then I come back and put a glaze of the sapphire blue mixed with a little bit of white and Payne's Gray just to make it a little more grayer, a little more realistic in how you would see mountains from a distance, with the sun setting behind them. See that color right there, how it's lighter? Really preferred that color. It was the perfect choice. And that way too, I was able to leave the edges dark too, so there was no longer a need for me to use a Posca pen. I could just paint up close to the edge there and leave it be and have little dark shadows in certain spots. And that worked out really well. Yep. Showing you that. Super happy with that. And then once I'm finished with this, I let this dry really well. And then I will pull tape and then work on redoing the reflection. So there goes the tape. And yep, I'm telling you, I'm using the Sapphire Blue by Utrecht, a little dab of that on my parchment paper with just a little bit of white added. And this is super, super wet, y'all. Like right there, I was saying, oh, I need to add more water. Very, very wet. And I end up using, I paint this in, and I use my mop brush for blending because it does a really good job of not leaving too much water on my substrate. And it seemed to even out the colors too. So I had a baby mop brush. Do I show it to you? No, I'm still using the angle brush to get the, try to mirror the mountain shapes down below in reverse. So that's what I'm doing there. And then here comes the mini mop, but it was too small. So I played with that for a minute and said, yeah, it's okay, but it doesn't blend as good as this big guy here. So that's when I get out the big guy. And you can tell I can really lighten up those lines so they're not so hard. Very soft looking, and it's a super blending tool for blending colors. It's just amazing. Just doing some touch up here, and then I think I'm going to hold it up to see if I need to make any cut-ins or make any of these shapes larger to mimic the mountains. That's what I'm doing right there. And it's getting pretty close, taking a look. And I think we're almost done here. A couple little spots that I want to play with. Yeah, like right there, it doesn't quite match up. So I'm just going to fix that and then blend it in there. And again, I really liked and wanted to be sure that you could see the painting underneath. That was the whole point of this for the reflection, is I didn't want it to be solid. I wanted you to be able to see the colors and the lacing and cells underneath that sapphire blue. So just cutting that in a little deeper to make it match the mountain. And that's just a very damp paper towel because the paint is still very, very wet. So once that's all done, I think all I need to do now is add my horizon with a bright pink Sharpie. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the final result. I think it looks a million times better. The sky and the water below, I just think are so phenomenal. One of my favorite things is there's that moon with a cloud that's been there since the beginning, but has been ignored. It's just a nice little touch. The mountain range looks a million times better. I can't say enough about that. And those colors of the sky, I think, are just phenomenal. I don't even have a flash on this. There's my pink horizon line, just, for fun, for a pop of color. And yeah, that's it. If you're interested in this piece, shoot me an email at waterfallacrylics@gmail.com or look for it on my website at waterfallacrylics.com. I'm pretty sure this one is just going to get a gloss varnish, probably my Joe Sonia gloss varnish, and I'm going to leave it be. I think picking a frame for this might be kind of tricky too, but super pretty. I hope you guys like it. I hope you learned something. I learned a ton making this, and super happy with how it turned out. Yep. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering who I had on my channel, I think 95% of you guessed it. It was Erica Hughes from Erica Hughes Art. I thought it was a dead giveaway. So thanks for playing along. Let me know what you think, and peace out.